started. First of all, welcome to Toxic Toast Records Theater, owned by Andy, who I'm going to call up in a second. Welcome to our monthly meeting of Our Revolution Long Beach. If you do not have an agenda yet, we're going to pass them around, or you can come up and grab one.
I would set
on
it
the
to
back,
daylight.
It tells you
I would just
what
set
we
it to
stand
daylight,
for.
the one that looks
here
like a
at,
signing call today
Revolution
at
Long
this
Beach,
point.
We are activists, first and foremost. And so what we try to do is we try to change our society, our community from the ground up. We realize that there's a lot of special interests fighting against us, and so our way of fighting back is by coming together. And so this is one of the ways of doing that, so thank you so much for being here. So I want to thank the candidates for being here. I also want to thank Long Beach Forward for providing us with the translation equipment. So thank you, Long Beach Forward. Can we actually clap for Long Beach Forward? I want to thank the Our Revolution members and steering committee. It has been their donations that have made this possible. So thank you, Our Revolution members and people who have shown up to our meetings and pitched in a few bucks here and there. We do have translation services, like I said. I want to thank Ileana for being out here and helping us out with that. Una vez más, si necesita traducción, vaya allá atrás. Ileana lo va a ayudar con un equipo de audio. Okay, I want to bring up Andy real quick. Andy is the owner of Toxic Toast Records, and he's going to tell you a little bit about this place.
Hi, I am Andy. I'm the owner of Toxic Toast Records. Also, where we're sitting right now is Toxic Toast Theater. We are donating our time and our space for this event because we think that it's something very important for the community. If you like what we do, support us in any way would be helpful. Come to the record store, drop some money, come to an event would be really great. We're trying to form a music community for independent music within Long Beach. You can check us out on our Facebook and see on our event page, or if you come into the store, we'll give you a concert calendar. And it would be really important and mean a lot to me and the musicians playing if you would come support live music and support our community. Thank you.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but Andy is giving us this room for free tonight. So thank you so much, Andy. So on the back, you'll have the restrooms straight back to the left. On your way to the restrooms, you'll see there are tables. The candidates have set up their own tables. It's your choice if you want to go to the tables and meet the candidates on a more personal level, or meet their supporters, sign up, etc. But we also have a very special table. No, not the coffee table, although that is a special table. We do have coffee and water back there. We have the Wilmore Baking Company back there. They are from the 1st District, and to tell you a little bit about that, here's Sheila.
Thank you so much for allowing us to come and tell you about the Wilmore Baking Company. We are a nonprofit that operates through the umbrella of the Wilmore City Heritage Association. We are a school that we teach people with zero to low income a marketable skill. Everybody needs to have a job, and we need to be able to have a skill to have a job. So Chef Allen is a retired baker with 38 years of experience, and he is teaching people how to be professional bakers. We also have people that are helping them build their resumes. We do interview training. We do how to get and keep a job skills, and we also give them the California Food Handler Certificate. All of this is done tuition free, so we appreciate the donations. If you know of anybody that might be fit the criteria and might be interested in doing this class, they're a lot of fun. They take place at Cesar Chavez Park, and we have a class starting on September 10th.
So just so we're clear, they have a table back there with cookies. I don't know if you caught that. They brought about 100 cookies, and so they will be accepting donations. So at some point tonight, you guys please go back there, grab some cookies, leave a couple bucks behind, and support that very important program. Okay, so once again, this is Our Revolution Long Beach. We meet every month. On your program, on the back, it says the next meeting is going to be Tuesday, August 27th, right here, 7 to 9 p.m. And we're actually going to be joined by Dr. Eduardo Lara, who's going to be talking about race, class, and gender in politics. So very important issue now that we have the 2020 presidential primaries rolling around. Okay, so thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to call up one of the persons who worked really hard to make this happen. That's the political outreach chair of Our Revolution Long Beach, and that's Kathy De Silva.
Hi and welcome, and it's so good to see so many people here engaging in your democracy. We want to start out with just a few guidelines and format. So as a courtesy to the candidates, we ask that you refrain from making comments or displaying signs during the forum. Please silence your cell phones if you haven't already. And the way that the way the format is set up is that after a brief introduction, each candidate will be given 1 minute to make an opening statement. We will then move to our prepared question statements, where the candidates will be given again 1 minute to answer each question. The final segment of the program will be the audience Q&A, and again, they'll be given 1 minute. You have probably seen that you have cards on your chair. That's for you to write any questions that you might want to ask, and then there are volunteers that will be floating around that you can pass them to. We will ask as many questions as we can get to, but as you know, there's not a lot of time, and we have a lot of candidates, which is just wonderful. After that, as Caesar was saying, please feel free to do the meet and greet. Go back and meet the candidates, or their volunteers. You can sign up to volunteer if you got inspired. Sign up for their campaign. And then let me introduce the candidates so we can get right to it. All right.
I'm used to it.
Wait a minute. Ray Marquecho.
Perfect.
I did it. Ray Marquecho is a longtime Long Beach resident who fell in love with the city when he moved here to work his way through college. He is now a small business owner, member of the Wilmore Neighborhood Association, the Long Beach chapter of the Surfrider Foundation, and the Sierra Club. Next to him is Lena Gonzalez. He's a local activist with Stop Fracking Long Beach, a group that has been organizing for a ban on fracking and acidizing in Long Beach. He's a member of several progressive organizations, including the Progressive Democrats of America, Democratic Socialists of America, Long Beach, and Our Revolution. Elliot served the Sustainability Commission for the city from 2010 to 2018, and he also ran for the California State Assembly District 70 in 2018. Next we have Hashim Muhammad, and he has attended Loyola Marymount University, and he lives and works in District 1 as a job security contractor. Mariela Salgado is next, and she is a small business owner and serves as Long Beach Parks and Recreation and Marine Commissioner. She is an active member in numerous civic and business organizations, including the Signal Hill Chamber of Commerce and Edison Elementary School Site Council. She holds a bachelor's and master's degree from Pepperdine University. And then we have Missy Tagaloa. Did I get that right? No. Okay. And he is the CEO of Canopy Communications, which creates and rehabilitates affordable housing in Long Beach. He also serves as the senior pastor at Second Samoan Congregational Church at 7th and Cedar. Missy has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Hawaii, a master's in business administration from Cal State University Long Beach, and a master's and PhD in theology from Claremont. And now we come to Mary Zendejas, and she is currently serving her second term on the Long Beach Transit Board of Directors. which oversees the largest non-diesel fleet in the nation. She is also founder of Professional Abilities Association of America, an organization created for working professionals with disabilities by working professionals with disabilities, focusing on inclusion in the workforce. Additionally, she is a two-time graduate of Leadership Long Beach, served as a member of Mayor Robert Garcia's transition team, and a former board member of Housing Long Beach. Let's give them all a big welcome. And the way that we're going to do this, we're going to start with the first question. You'll get it first, and then Elliot will just rotate who gets it first. Okay? So, as you know, there are so many issues facing our city, our country, our planet, but we won't be able to really make a dent in them in the short time, so we're going to do the best we can. So let's just start by opening it up to the candidates by asking them, if elected to office. What? Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. I forgot my own process here. Yeah. You want to start with your opening statement?
Sure, I just wanted to get right into the nitty-gritty of it. I appreciate everyone coming out, our Revolution Long Beach Toxic Toast, for opening their doors, and for the rest of the candidates to show up in open dialogue. I am Raymore Ketchel, and I'm running because I want to bring trust back to government. We all can't see eye to eye, but I think that we're missing that humanity that used to exist between each other. There's a lot of sides yelling back and forth, and nobody's listening. The thing that I want to bring back is eliminating compromise as a dirty word. There's a lot of interest in Long Beach, a lot of people who've come from a lot of places, and I thoroughly enjoy the way this city feels on the ground level. So I'm running because I want to see Long Beach grow, develop, but not lose its character and not leave people behind. So I hope that throughout this night I can earn your vote and earn your trust. I know I get a minute, but honestly, it's that simple. I want to make sure that when a decision's made, the best interest of the residents, the most amount of good is done for the most amount of people. So I appreciate everyone being here, and I hope you have a great night. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elliot. It's great to be with you all. I want to welcome you all to our revolution. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our organization, we started this organization 2 years ago to complete the work of Bernie Sanders' political revolution. I'm very much inspired by Senator Sanders. I've made a lifelong commitment to be part of that revolution. I want to be doing the same thing he's doing at his age, and I need to start now. And I'm one of the many young people who are very inspired by the senator, because we realize that our future is at stake, and we must play an active role in the fight for our future. When we're talking about the issues that are happening to the climate, that are happening to the earth, this will determine what kind of future we're all going to inherit. So I think as young people, we need to play an active role in determining the shape of our future and making sure that that future will not be determined by corporate interests, not by fossil fuel interests, not by landlords. It will be determined by the working people in a movement.
First of all, I want to thank you for coming. My name is Hashem Mohammed. I've lived and worked within District 1 for 10 years. I truly feel that my experiences in life has forged the leadership skills needed to make District 1 a better place and a jewel of Southern California. A leader has to have experienced the hardships that the average person has faced in everyday life. A true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. Thank you.
If I may, let me stand actually. My name is Mariela Salgado, and I'm running for City Council. I've personally experienced what many of the First District residents are living. When I was 6 years old, as I'm reminded on 10th Street, I went to food banks to collect food, to churches for clothing. I walked alongside my mother and to collect cans and bottles just to make ends meet. Times were tough for us. My father was a machinist, and I remember him losing his job multiple times. But the two things I learned when we went through this was first, that my family was really resilient. And second, what it was to feel and experience the service and kindness of others. And it's because of them that I'm standing here today. And it's also why I've been of service for over 20 years. It's important that the first district knows, the first district representative knows the neighborhoods. It's going to be a champion for the residents, and it's going to be a champion for, oh, did I get cut? Champion for its residents, and also understand to be the strong voice for its residents. My name is Mariela Salgado, and I'm running for City Council.
My name is Misi Tangalo, and I want to thank you for coming. I also want to echo our gratitude to Andy and the staff for maintaining this space so we can have these conversations, because this is very important in democracy, to get people with different ideas to come together and not tear each other's hearts out. So I'm very thankful for that. We talk. There's compromise, I'm writing these notes here, hospitality, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running for City Council. I would like to bring as many of these diverse opinions together so that way we can negotiate a future that's distinct and open for us. This is just one of 9 seats. So we have to be mindful of that. We have to send our very best to the dais to negotiate on our behalf. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mary Zendejas. My family immigrated to the United States when I was a little girl because I had polio. Thanks to all of their sacrifices, I was the first in my family to graduate from high school and earn a degree from right here from California State University, Long Beach. I am running for council because I want to be that champion. The champion that the First District residents deserve. Someone to fight for access. Access to housing, to a good living wage, to safe neighborhoods, and a healthy environment. I come to you with knowledge, with experience, with a strong foundation, and most importantly, with compassion. And I hope to be your voice at City Council. Mary Zendejas for City Council.
All right, so now we can get to the questions. So starting with Ray, if elected to office, what are the top 3 priorities you would tackle and why?
Absolutely. So again, there's lots of problems facing any large city. Long Beach is one of those large cities. I think crime, housing, and pollution, those are probably going to be the largest contributors to what you would have to talk about when you knock on a door, look someone in the face. I think that public safety permeates everything from the top down. If you don't feel safe, you don't engage with your neighbors, you don't engage with business, you don't engage at all. I think that's where you have to start. If you don't feel comfortable in your own home, you don't know if you're going to have a home in the next 30 days, that also weighs on you. Quality of life issues, environment, parking, things of that nature, again, you have to work to alleviate those little stresses that you have every day. There's big, large, overarching problems, but you have to start from the ground level. I always try and remind people as I'm walking the district that City Council, although an elected position, is nonpartisan for a reason, because you are supposed to be dealing with the little issues. Tree trimming, stump removal, the alleyways. There's big problems, and then you have to start at the ground level.
Elliot?
Sure, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, if elected to office, what are the top 3 priorities you would tackle and why?
The top 3 priorities. I would say number 1, when I talk to people in the community, their number 1 issue is housing. A lot of people are wondering about the increasing cost of rent. What can I do about this increasing cost of rent if my wages aren't going up? Where am I going to find this extra money? You have teachers doing Uber, a lot of people doing side gigs, what we call the gig economy, as if this is somehow cute, that we are having a difficult time trying to make ends meet, trying to pay the rents. Number one issue is housing. Number two, which we'll solve with the land trust, building land, publicly owned land for the public. Number two is a public bank. So I have a large infrastructure plan. We need to procure energy, procure water for the next generations. This is going to require massive investment, millions of dollars. I also believe in unionized jobs, good paying jobs. So if we're going to build a public infrastructure, we need a bank to finance this infrastructure. Number three is a Green New Deal. We have an obligation, all of us, all the people of the world, have an obligation to the next generations to make sure we leave this planet healthy and habitable. We must participate in an international cooperation. A Green New Deal must be made to the world.
Thank you.
Yeah, once elected to city council, there's three issues that I would tackle. The homeless problem is being number one, jobs and rent control. We can no longer allow our citizens to sleep on the sidewalks in their own excrement, things of that nature. We have to develop a plan, and one of my plans is to set up a homeless base camp so they can get the proper treatment and care that they need. If you walk through Long Beach on any given day, it smells like an outhouse, and that's unacceptable. There's medieval diseases resurfacing, typhus being one of them, and we need to get on top of that. Jobs. We need to bring some high-skilled, high-paying Fortune 500 companies here to Long Beach. I would like to reach out to Jeff Bezos of Amazon to get those 25,000 jobs that was turned down in New York. The rent control, we definitely need that. It's unacceptable. I hear a lot of stories from senior citizens. They've been living in their residence for 15, 20 years, only to have a greedy landlord put them out on the street so he can make more money. One of our proposals is that they're not going to be able to put those seniors out until that senior is able to find a place to move. Once that senior is able to find a place to move, then they can move out. Thank you.
When my father lost his job a couple years ago, I remember how difficult it was to sort of, I guess, for lack of better words, stop the bleeding. So one of the top three things that I would do as a city council member is, first is housing. You know, there's an inclusionary housing that's being already in the works for our city council, and I'd like to know where it's at and how we're going to move it forward to ensure that we are creating more affordable housing for our residents. You know, there's all types of housing that we need to include. Supportive housing, housing for middle class, housing for low income. So housing is one. Second is homelessness. Again, you know, one of the things that I learned along the way is that according to our last homeless count, 50% of those folks were experiencing homelessness for the first time. For the first time. So that means we need to look at what is impacting those households so that we can stop the bleeding. And the third thing is prioritizing what's needed in our neighborhoods. You know, I've worked alongside each of the neighborhoods in our district, and I want to make sure that those vulnerable communities or those issues are being at the top and the forefront of our policy.
As the CEO of Canopy Communities Corporation, I have a unique perspective to affordable housing, which is the number one thing I'll tackle. It's not easy to put something together like an affordable housing project, but I'm uniquely positioned and equipped to handle that. The second piece that's out there, it's very visible, is the homeless problem. And that's so complicated. It's so complicated. We cannot afford to attack these things peripherally. We have to go deep on these issues and find out exactly why we're having these problems that are persisting. I ran before, about 5 years ago, and the problems have gotten worse. And these are the same issues we were trying to tackle. And then the last thing I wanted to handle is this whole notion of a living wage job. This mechanism that generates money for people to sustain their lives, roof over their heads, and all that stuff. We need to really take a look at that and see what the living wage rate should be for our people.
Three of the things that I champion and have been championing for years here in Long Beach are affordability, accessibility, and sustainability. Affordability means ability to be able to afford to live in Long Beach. You know, as a past and very active affordable housing advocate, it takes a long time to get something to City Hall. Just recently, we had the tenant relocation ordinance at City Hall that came to the City Council. But what people don't know is that we've been working on something like that for years, and it took us years to get there. We need to move a little bit quicker on things like that. And also, you know, if you didn't know, last week it was also being brought to City Council because it was being brought to City Council, and with the option of maybe watering it down a little bit. But so affordability, accessibility, not only for infrastructure.
Thank you. So we'll start with Elliot this time. Elliot, what values, proficiencies, or skill sets do you have that qualify you to represent this district and that would enable you to hit the ground running on day one?
So I would say the most important experience that I'm starting with is I know what it's like to be a renter. I know what it's like to be in the struggle. I know what it's like to be working class. I know what it's like to be a student in this city, trying to you know, keep a roof over your head and make it into class in time and keep a job. So I think having the experience that a lot of people go through is what qualifies me. What values? I made a firm commitment to do everything I can to protect future generations. I understand that we are the generation that will define what the future is. I understand that I come from a legacy of justice, that we wouldn't have what we have. We wouldn't have integration in schools. We wouldn't be where we are in terms of a progressive movement if it weren't for the people who fought for us. And so as the people who have inherited this world, we have a responsibility to make sure that the next generation gets to inherit at least a habitable and healthy planet. So I have a commitment to Mother Earth and to our community that is a value that I carry with me everywhere I go, every day of my life.
Skill sets do I have? I've been working on the corner of 7th and Long Beach Boulevard in the security capacity for the past 10 years. So I've had an opportunity to interact with various people from the community and listen to their stories. Me myself, I can relate to them. You know, I've grew up in, I guess what you would call the school of hard knocks. I've been confronted with situations where it came down to either putting gas in the car or paying the electric bill. And basically, I'm going to tackle those situations. Thank you.
I shared earlier my humble beginnings. I started my work in nonprofit helping small businesses. And then during the recession, I got my master's degree and then worked on to manage projects and programs across the US and Canada for a Fortune 500 company. Today, I'm a small business owner that serves Long Beach. I'm a mother, and I volunteer hundreds of hours to each of the associations in this first district and across Long Beach. So I think that my work inside, in terms of what I do on a day-to-day basis and outside, gives me a unique perspective in terms of what is happening in our city and across the city, not just in our district, but also what people are experiencing.
You know, that word value is very important, Kathy, for me, because that's that thing that you put up against and you just couldn't smash it, right? So to me, there's a certain value system I think that everyone ascribes to, and you carry it with you, right? In my Christian language, it's the image of God, it's the imago Dei, and everybody has that in you. But the skill set I have that I'll be bringing to the council is connecting all these values, right? And lifting it up so that our voice is heard throughout the city and throughout the state and the world. That's what I bring. And I think it's when we align ourselves to those values that have transcend time and space, then we will become this district that's first in Long Beach first.
One of the things that I'm very proud of is being a Long Beach resident for almost 30 years. And for the whole 30 years I have been here, I have given so much to the community in so many aspects. One of the things that will help me hit the ground running, if elected, is my experience. Right now, sitting on the Long Beach Transit Board of Directors has given me the experience of being able to oversee a multi-million-dollar company, one of the best transportation companies in the district. With that, I just want to say that also my eagerness for keeping true to my values, which is integrity and persistence. I am a fighter. I have always been a fighter, and I will continue to be a fighter. And I will fight for my residents until our voices are heard.
The values and experience that I can bring to hit the ground running is I got my degree from the University of Irvine in political science and worked for the state of California, the Board of Equalization for 6 years under the vice chair, who gave me a very unique perspective on cooperation and what government is meant to do, which is help as many people as possible, keeping in mind that they are in charge, not me. So there's also an aspect of humility. Hitting the ground running doesn't mean going in there and bulldozing everyone. There's 8 other city council members and a mayor that have been there for far longer, and also a management structure who's been there for far longer and will be there longer than I will be. The thing that I want to express is that there are good ideas on both sides, and there's also multitudes of problems that you can't solve by just busting in the door and saying, I know everything. So my humility, my background from being raised by a single mother on food stamps to now being in front of all of you wonderful people, that's an aspect that I think I can bring to the table and city council as a whole. So thank you. Oh, that was the punishment.
Oh.
So, no, sorry.
Sorry, I spaced out.
That means it was
All right, so Hashim, democracy is a two-way street. Ideally, elected officials seek input from their constituents so they can more fully represent their needs and at the same time provide output to ensure transparency and accountability. What procedures would you put in place to accomplish this when you were in office?
Well, you know, I'm a firm believer in we the people, and I believe we the people have a right to approach our elected officials at any given time. So I would have an open door policy. Any of my constituents in the community would like to come and talk to me, they can come and talk to me at any time. You know, there'd be no a middleman that you would have to go through. Thank you.
You know, one of the things I've learned working alongside each of the associations is that each association is very unique. Washington neighborhood is different than the issues that North Pine residents need. And so I think from my perspective, it's talking to the residents and prioritizing what is it that they need and are looking to do in their own neighborhoods, empowering them, and also maintain that level of transparency that I think is important in any person that's holding office. It's a transparency and accountability, and I want to start that now. So for me, it's not just later, but now. So if any of you guys have any questions or want to learn more about me, I'm going to give my personal cell phone to everyone, 562-533-5681, because I want to make sure that people know that I have an open door policy that I've done before and I will continue to do in service.
Transparency seems to resonate, and I think it varies how that is manifested, right? When you're up in the city council, what does that mean? right? What does that mean? So I would first open my calendar up. I'd say, if you want to know where your council person is, just click on my website and click on the calendar, and there it is. But there are other things that occur. A lot of the deals are cut not at City Hall.
Sure.
So we need to expand that definition of calendar and transparency, so that way we pick up the other stuff that we do after hours. Because if we are really concerned about transparency and that's the solution to getting these things done, then we really need to attack it at different levels. And that's what I propose to do, and that's who I'll be, transparent, Misi Tangalo.
This really excites me. As you know, we just created the first, or one of the first ethics commission, voter approved ethics commission, which I hope that this will be a start in the right direction. You know, this is going to be the way to go. But as city council persons, we need to make sure that that plan is implemented and that it is following the exact guidelines that the voters wanted it to follow. So yes, I'm super excited. Not only will I be accessible to all of the residents, but also one of the things I'm doing on my campaign trail is I'm doing listening forums. So be on the lookout for my listening forums. I want to hear from you what the issues are in your neighborhoods and how may I be of service to you.
I think transparency and authenticity go hand in hand. When you're walking the district, the reason why I've been getting so much support is you look someone dead in the eyes and this is what I mean, and they believe you. Mariella actually stole my cell phone thing. If you go on the web, if you go on the candidate website, the phone number under next to my name is my cell phone. So if you go on the website, you can actually see that it is transparency. Again, I don't work for you guys to honor me. You're the employer, I'm the employee. One of the biggest things that you can do once you're on the dais is you can kind of hide things with late-minute agenda items, consent calendars, different things of that nature, to not necessarily pull one over because it's obviously public information, but to not open up as much debate. I look forward to making these decisions and then looking every one of the voters in the eye and saying, this is why I did it, here's the information why, and if you disagree, let's go, let's talk about this another way. So I appreciate the opportunity to start up front, and my cell phone's also up there.
So I just want to say I agree with everything that I've heard. The calendar, I think that's something that I remember Robert Garcia doing when he first ran for this office. I don't know if he's still consistent with that, but you know, I think a lot of times when people go into office, they have these ideas around transparencies, and then you meet with the people who you took money from. And if you take their money, they're expecting to meet with you later, and they're kind of expecting you to do a favor for them. That's how politics works, not just here in Long Beach, that's how it works everywhere. This is a global standard. Money makes people act differently. So if you take developer money, or you take oil money, it's going to be hard to then go around and tell me, look me in the eye, which is something that some of these elected officials will do. They'll look you in the eye and say, oh, that doesn't influence me. That's not the reason I voted to approve the Los Cerritos wetlands drilling. That's not the reason I approved this new building, you know, and all these new buildings for these people who don't even live here. The reason why they take this money is so that they can get a favor. So one of the best ways to start transparency
Everybody mentioned, sorry. Oh, before we do the next question, please don't forget to pass over your index cards. If you have a question, they'll be collecting them. Okay, thank you. Mariella, everybody up here, I think, pretty much mentioned housing as one of their number 3 issues. So we are in the midst of a housing crisis. Rent increases and gentrification are displacing many long-term residents in Long Beach. how would you address the problem of affordable housing, profit-based evictions, and rent increases in our city?
Now we're talking. You know, we are in a crisis, and I understand that. Like I said earlier, when my parents lost their job, I remember looking for work for them. I mean, an apartment for them, and I felt like with each day, each unit that we were searching got more and more applicants coming to it. So I know that it's a crisis that's happening to our residents. So one of the ways that I think we need to attack it is we need to create more housing, yes. Like I said earlier, different types of housing, affordable housing, supportive housing, inclusionary housing, and that's gonna have, you know, some really good conversations with the other 8 council members. You also have to look at how we're gonna strengthen tenant protections. You know, as I said, my mother, as a renter, I know that she's in a month-to-month rent, and she could easily lose her apartment, you know, from one month to the next. And the last thing is just displacement. I think there's a lot to be said about how to understand why people are being displaced in terms of even things about like evictions. You know, are we looking at ways to solve and help people that are going through evictions so that they can you know, look for apartments or units? There's definitely a lot more conversations that need to be had in terms of why are people being displaced or losing their housing.
It all goes back to our values, right, Kathy? If we believe that housing is a basic fundamental right, then we can start there. And then everything else falls into place, right? The homelessness problem that we've been facing for years, unsolved, is because we don't think those folks deserve a home, right? The increasing rents, the gentrification, it's because we don't value housing for those folks, right? The fixed income folks, the seniors. My point is, if we go back to our value structure, who are we as a district, as a city? Is housing a fundamental right? Now that's up for debate, and we can have those debates, right? Because I don't think rent control is the answer, right? I don't think. Rent stabilization maybe, but the whole notion of constricting a certain population of people from earning a living, especially the mom and pops, we need to take a closer look, is what I'm saying.
I've always been passionate about affordable housing. I think the first thing we need to do is put someone in council who actually lives the life of searching for affordable housing. That person is me. I am a renter, and I have always been a renter. I have been struggling to find affordable housing that is also accessible housing. Like, really? But I have, along with a lot of people who need accessible housing. See, I lived in an apartment that was inaccessible for me for over 10 years, which meant I had to use the restroom with help. I wasn't independent because I could not access the restroom. So I know what it is and now I can use my restroom, but I'm paying triple the rent that I was paying then. That's not affordable for me.
So this is definitely one of those issues that are on everyone's mind. There has to be a compromise. I understand as a renter myself, we just found out that my property owner is planning on selling. I'm uniquely qualified to be panicked. The problem is that a lot of times there's, again, voices shouting from one side to the other, and we're not taking people's perspectives into account. Renter protection is great, but when it's so over the top onerous that you find people fleeing Long Beach as good landlords or land developers or people who are thinking about doing low or affordable housing, we have to build. So you have to take those two sides into account. You have to find it to be the best way to do both, because again, you can't side with one side or the other, because that's not how city government should work. You have to listen to both sides, and you have to be willing to work with both sides. As of right now, the quick answer, I think, was relocation assistance, but there's a lot of problems with that ordinance, which we're finding out now as they're trying to bring it back up to council. So you have to be willing to compromise and listen.
So I think I disagree with some of the comments that are made. I do believe in compromise, but there are some issues where you are not supposed to compromise, where people are really counting on you. So the air we breathe, not for compromise.
Wow.
The type of housing that we provide, and if we provide housing, which is a basic human need, a basic human right, not a compromise. This is something I think that if you're going to represent the First District, you need to stand on the side of the people who are affected, that is the renters. And so our housing policy calls for building a land trust. And rather than incentivizing and working with market forces, which I think is an approach and is one of the many tools in the toolbox, we actually need to acquire land and build housing. A public land trust offers multiple benefits to the community outside of just the market forces. One, it's something that is publicly owned, and with the public owning this land and owning this housing, they will be the ones to determine the price of the rents. They will be the ones to determine the type of quality of the housing. So I think we need to think out of the box, and we also need to absolutely stand with the affected, and that is the renting class.
Gentrification. In my opinion, gentrification is a violation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, for the simple fact you're targeting people based on their economic status, and that has to stop. One of the things that I would do to try to alleviate some of the shortage of housing is I support the working class, the forgotten middle class. We need easing of the zoning laws. We need tax breaks for developers, so construction of affordable housing can begin. A lot of these developers are coming into Long Beach creating these new condominiums, but they're looking for a profit in return. Us down here on the grassroots level, we understand that the rent is just too high. Zoning and overtaxation is the reason why developers are hesitant about building within Long Beach. Thank you.
The rotation is getting to me, what can I tell you? Okay, Missy, environment. Climate change is real, and it is an immediate threat to the existence of every living thing on our planet. Do you think the city is doing all it can to provide a clean and healthy environment for its residents? If not, what other measures would you like to see implemented by the city?
So we can never do enough for the environment. It's one of those basic values that you can't smash it up, right? Because it affects everybody, regardless of your economic condition. It's right up there with air, and some people think money, but I'd like to take a closer look at that, because we can live without money, but we can't live without air. We can't live without fresh water, clean water. And we can't live without this word, be put together. So I think we all have a moral responsibility to make sure we do our little bit to preserve the environment for the next generation. I have 3 kids, and I'm looking forward to some grandkids, and like to be able to say, I've done my bit to preserve the world and leave it in a better place than when I found it for them.
As you know, we have a sustainability department in the city, correct? And the thing is that climate change is real, like Kathy said. One of the things is that we have a plan, a climate action plan through the sustainability department, and we need it to be implemented. So what we really need is, once all of it is approved, we need someone, a specific position built in that department so that they can address climate change, only climate change, because it's real. And I've always wanted a waterbed, but not like that.
So to bluntly answer your question, no, I don't think we're doing enough. I know that we have action plans and we have a lot of plans in the city, but I don't think that all of them are being implemented. I think we need more data. I think we need more air quality receptors, or at least things that are measuring airs at schools and different places around the first district, because we're disproportionately affected with the 710 corridor. The port is important. There's a lot of jobs in that aspect of it, but what is Long Beach going to look like in 50 years? What is that what is that next business boom going to be? Can we be that green city as a beacon of light, as a business owner who is dependent on the environment? I own a surf school, and as a member of the Surf Rider and Sierra Club, it is very important. But again, you have to strike that balance, because if you make environmental impact reports and you make these things so expensive for development or business growth, you lose jobs, you lose opportunity, and you have to keep that balance. Although it's very, very important to breathe clean air, you can't do it at the expense of people's livelihoods.
I think we're going to have to adjust our livelihoods, because you cannot compromise on our air, you cannot compromise on our water, you cannot compromise on our future. Folks, we have 5 to 10 years. 5 to 10 years, that's what the International Panel of Climate Change is saying. They're giving you a conservative view when they say you have 11 years, the year 2030. Other scientists are saying, well, you're way past the point. Others are saying you have about 5 years. In this 5 to 10 years, if we do not keep fossil fuels in the ground, no matter what the CEOs, no matter what some of the people who may have donated to your campaign, or Signal Hill Petroleum, I don't know if they're in the room, no matter what they feel, if you don't listen to what these scientists are telling you, this planet is toast. The ice is melting, the water is rising. Long Beach is going underwater, and every beach city is going underwater. This is a fact. So are we going to be the generation of people who listen to the scientists, who listen to the indigenous elders who have been warning us this whole time? Or are we going to continue to do whatever serves the market interest? It is time that we move our economy around the finite resources of the planet, not the other way around.
Wow, 10 years, I sure hope NASA hurry up and colonize Mars so we have a chance. Climate change is real. We do need to do more to alleviate the plastics, the emissions from the refineries being released into the air. We need to do more to preserve the ocean. Right now, anything that you consume out of the ocean contains mercury. We need to definitely get out there and try and get all that plastic the size of Texas out of the ocean. And I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
You know, we actually don't need any more data. We have the highest concentrations of pollutants here in our first district. This is about environmental justice. I was part of the group that was against Hoonigans when they were getting special project permits to do that burning, their tire burning, and the fumes would go right over into the Edison Elementary, right across the street. It's happening right here, and so I think there's a few things that we can do, that I would do is limit the expansion of the 710, continue to push the zero emissions, continue to push local and target hiring. You know, we drive so much sometimes that we don't realize that if people actually worked here, 70% of our residents work outside of our city. So if we actually had targeting hiring, we would have people living and working here and commuting less. And of course, there's always things that we could do, like improving our bike pathways in terms of the LA River. I mean, there's so much. I think for me, it's personal, because I'm a mother. You know, I have my 2 kids. I can't walk sometimes. I have my daughter who has asthma issues. I can't even pinpoint what it is, but it's happening. So for me, this is not what place where I would compromise, just like Elliot said.
So this is the last of the prepared questions, and then we'll move on to questions from the audience. And we will end with you, Mary. So police kill more people in California than in any other state at a rate that's 37% higher than the national average per capita. 5 of the 15 police departments with the highest per capita rates of police killings in the United States are in California, and Long Beach is listed as one of the top 5. Do you think the city needs to update its use of force policy, and if so, what measures would you take to address the excessive rates of police killing and ensure police accountability?
This is a tough one. It's so tragic, what happens. Any violent life loss is tragic. Policies, we need to provide more training. We need to provide more sensitivity training. We need to really, really dig deep and try to find solutions, because we cannot have this going on anymore. We need to invest in doing more. We really need to work closely with the safety departments. But being a woman in a wheelchair, my livelihood and my independence depends on our public safety. They are the ones I count on. And so we need to make sure that that we are implementing programs to make them better. Like right now we have a pilot program for cameras, and that's really good. Let's keep moving in that direction.
I actually agree. This is a tough one, because you can see it from the statistics, and you can also see it from the police officer's point of view. I don't think anyone wearing a uniform goes to work thinking that they're going to shoot somebody that day. I think that they're humans, and I think that they want to do a good job to keep the community safe. That being said, there has to be transparency, and I think the body cameras is a good step. Any indication of use of force that wasn't within guidelines that can be shown, and again, transparency with the residents is paramount. There needs to be trust. You need to understand that when a police officer is called, you're being pulled over, whether they're in the right or you feel like they're in the wrong, they're currently in charge of the situation. So compliance with their commands is going to help as well. I think if you reach out as a community, you educate, you integrate with police officers at movies at the park or different community events, it's a very good idea to humanize the police force, as well as look at best practices in communities that aren't experiencing as much police on citizen violence. So I think that again goes down to communication, transparency, and cooperation.
First of all, I do not accept money from the Police Officers Association. I believe that they are public servants, and so they need to be held accountable as members of the public. We should not be taking their money. Remember what I said about the developers? Remember what I said about the oil companies? When you take police officer money, you have less courage to speak out when there's something that goes wrong. So I have a lot of mixed feelings, as I think all of you do, because we were all taught to respect police, and I hope that we all do. We all understand this is a very stressful job, that if this is one of our loved ones who took on this job, we would pray for their safety every single time they go out the door. But we also saw what happened to Eric Garner on the street of New York City, and we understand that not one cop went to jail, but the person who filmed it did. We understand that a young lady was sexually assaulted in the back of a police car, and their defense was that she consented to that. We understand that police often ask people to be involved in cover-ups, especially of black and brown communities. And we have to do something about this. Again, I tell you, I'm from a legacy. We are all from a legacy. We wouldn't have this world we have, we wouldn't have the progress we have, if people didn't fight for us to have the freedoms we have. So when you see what happens to Eric Gardner, when you see what happened to, I'm sorry, the young man's name slips my mind, a young Cambodian man died at the hands of police force unarmed a few years ago. We have to speak up. There was a memorial service for the dog that got shot in the friendly fire. There was no mention of the man's name by one of the news reports. Folks, we have to speak up for communities, especially those who are most vulnerable, especially those who have been inherently targeted by the police.
guard for 10 years on the corner of 7th and Long Beach Boulevard. Some of the things that law enforcement is faced with, I face on a daily basis. In my opinion, you know, this has to be approached from two perspectives. One is the citizen. The citizen has to understand that when law enforcement is on the scene, these are people from the community. They've elected to protect the community. You can comply. When you escalate the situation by disrespecting law enforcement, like we've seen in New York by them throwing water on there, or say that law enforcement tells you to keep your hands where you can see them, and you start reaching, that law enforcement officer doesn't know what you're reaching for. We've been faced with a lot of the officers being killed. You've also heard about that on the news. I do believe that police do need to be trained in de-escalation and using less lethal force. Number one, for the individual, like I've been confronted with people that have knives, and I end up having to use my taser. I didn't automatically go for a firearm. So there are less lethal options out there that law enforcement can be trained in, depending on the situation, to bring that situation under control. Thank you.
Yeah. 7 out of 10 residents of Long Beach are people of color. So for me, I think part of the solution falls in diversifying what our PD looks like. I think we need to make sure that they reflect the communities they serve, because I think it lends a different scope. You know, one of the things, I'm probably one of the only candidates that did a ride-along with PD. And boy, do I have a different level of respect for them, because I fear for my life just being on the passenger side. But I do think there's some additional things that we can do, like support or require training that's de-escalation of conflict, provide training with youth development so that maybe, I know one of the things as a school site council member at Edison Elementary is that we have a lot of our kids, not just the homeless population with mental health issues, but we have a lot of kids who are dealing with trauma. And I think when we're not also adding additional programming or resources to impact our youth, I think we're actually lending ourselves an opportunity to really not be proactive in this issue. So for me, I think one of the things I'd like to see is to add resources and programming for our youth as well.
We've paid out $3 million every year to settle these lawsuits, these wrongful death lawsuits. $3 million every year the last 3, 4, 5 years. The pattern continues. I think we need to look at hiring practices. We really need to see what constitutes the police force, right? Like Mariella said, 70% of the city is not colored, so we need to figure out whether that's reflected in our police force. E is escalation, right? They keep escalating these encounters with the community. We need to train them so they can de-escalate, where they can de-escalate situations. And then lastly, it's accountability. I think that whole value system of being accountable is very important. I remember when the chief said, you know, we, the police officers, have a right to kill. That's the only difference between us and you. And I said, no, I can kill. Anybody can kill. Anybody has a, but it's killing with impunity. That's the accountability thing that's missing. We need to take a closer look at how we're policed.
Okay, we'll start back with Ray, and this is from a member of the audience. Many immigrant communities are under attack. What would you do to expand the sanctuary policy and protect families from deportations?
Expand under attack, meaning for like the ICE raids and things of that nature coming from the national kind of immigration thing. The problem with this being somewhat of a loaded question is that immigration policies are set at a national level. Again, I think that a lot of people are losing sight of what City Council does, and that is oversight for the ground level things, streets, public safety with police officers. I agree with the carve out where police do not integrate with ICE officials. That's not what Long Beach PD is supposed to do. That's to keep any resident, undocumented or not, safe. And I think that that's the real big issue is how do we maintain family cohesiveness? My grandmother and grandfather came here from Mexico not speaking English, and they became part of the community. It's okay to tell people not to open their doors and understand their rights, whether they're undocumented or not, but expanding the sanctuary city, where I think that they've already done a pretty good job of saying, hey, if you're going to be here and you're going to be part of our society, living by rules, then we have no problem with it. And let's open up an ability to have them be citizens sooner rather than later. But we have to work hand in hand with that community and police to keep them safe.
So I want to just, first of all, to this question, I just want to actually just thank those people, as people I see in the room, other people who they know who they are, who have been advocates for our immigrant community, whether they're undocumented or documented, whatever it is, treating them like they are human beings, community members. Thank you for bringing them up into the forefront. Thank you for lifting up their voices. Thank you for fighting for the sanctuary policy that we have. Thank you so much. So I will support whatever the Sanctuary Coalition needs. You know, whatever you this is where public service is about serving the public. There are people who are organizing around this issue. Whatever their recommendations are, I'll be happy to work with you on that. But let me just be very clear. The minimum, like you're saying, there's really not much we can do at a city council level. One of the things that we can do is advocate and use our mouths and be open and be vocal. We need to kick ICE out of Long Beach. They have an administration office here in Ocean. That person needs to go. We need to make them feel just as unwelcome as they are trying to make our community feel unwelcome. Because they're making us choose. I choose our community over ICE.
I would have to agree that the federal government is the one that sets the immigration policy. My mother-in-law and father-in-law come from Guanajuato, Mexico. They immigrated from Mexico here. They didn't necessarily come illegally, they came legally. As far as sanctuary city, or the mindset of having a sanctuary, I really think that was something that should have been put on the ballot for the people of California to vote on. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I have a very unique perspective in this because I was born in Mexico and I came to the States in 1986. I actually didn't realize, I was a dreamer before there were dreamers. I was an undocumented student. So for me, I think there's more that the city could do because I personally know what that looks like. And that is, we need to, in fact, I was actually at a Washington neighborhood and it came to light even more. We have to, from a procedural and administrative point of view, we have to look at ways of removing the citizenship question. That is a deterrent for people, for immigrants to participate. We need to add resources to language access and continue to add resources to the organizations that are doing the work. Because I think communities for undocumented folks, we need to continue to support them the way we can with our voices, but also through resources.
One of our guiding values is compassion. And so we need to be that. And when we're aligned with that, then we end up caring for those who are less fortunate. And that's why the immigration issue is very easy for me, because that's who we are. I got the Second Samoan Congregational UCC Church up the street to be listed as a sanctuary. So if there's a person that's out there that needs a sanctuary from ICE, just knock on our door and we'll bring them in. And then the churches have a whole slew of how to take care of them, teaching them their rights, getting the community involved, and making sure that this sanctuary cover is extended to different parts of the faith community. So that's my little thing that I've done on the corner of 7th and Cedar to manifest this notion that we take care of our own, we take care of our people, and we love the immigrant.
I immigrated to the United States and later became legal resident. And then after that, as soon as I had the opportunity, at the age of 18 years old, I became a citizen and earned my right to vote. One of the things that I think is that we need to be more conscious of all of our community members. First of all, at City Council, we can do better. We have done better. As a matter of fact, looking at the budget, one of the things that I'm really disappointed in is that we don't have any justice fund in this new cycle, in this new budget. And that is one of the things that I will work very hard to bring back. One of the first things that I will work on is to bring that justice fund back into the budget, because our neighborhoods need it, because our city deserves it.
Elliot, what's your position on rent control?
I'm for it. I'm not scared to say it. I'm for it. The rent is too damn high. We need to increase the rent. I also believe that we need to set up a public land trust so that we can actually build, so we're not always battling the market forces. We need to build land. We need land, and we need to build housing on that land. We are in a crisis, and the best way to address this crisis is not to do market manipulation and incentivize some market interests, but it's actually to do the work ourselves. I'm talking about, if you want to buy a house for yourself, first you need to buy the land. I'm talking about building a house for the public, so it's going to be publicly held land, and we're going to build public housing on it.
I'm all for rent control. I think we should have a cap on rent control. Once again, as I was saying earlier, we have a lot of greedy landlords out there. There's nothing wrong with making a little money, but there is something wrong with being greedy. One of the other things that I want to really stress is if there's a person that is being evicted, that person should not be put out of that residence until they're able to find another place to go to, because this is contributing to the homeless population. Thank you.
You know, I actually was in city council throughout the process of the tenant assistance policy, and I think we missed an opportunity there. I wish we had maybe a moratorium as that process went through, so that we really understood the effects of rent control. What people don't understand, and I'm saying this as a small business owner, is that when you go through this market, sometimes there are ways that it pushes the market to do other things. So in hindsight, I think we should have had a moratorium to discuss that better. I also think that we should work on ways to do pathways to home ownership or additional resources so that people can really find ways to stabilize their housing space, as opposed to what we've done, what we continue to experience with folks, which is a housing crisis.
When I think of the term rent control, control takes over, right? And I think to have someone control your livelihood is almost anti-American. So I think, and this is part of my skilling, if we can bring everybody together, let's figure out a way to provide housing to everybody. So I'm the CEO of a nonprofit housing provider, 320 units in Long Beach. And that's what I'm looking for, is to be able to house 60% of the area median income folks in these houses. But I'm not able to build those because the only things available are low-income housing tax credits. Home funds have dried up. We're looking for project-based Section 8. Here's my point. It's a lot more sophisticated and complicated than just let's put in rent control. Right? And I think we need a leader for the first district. I'm putting out this proposition that I could hold all of our differences without loss. We tried that. Josh Butler, I saw him here earlier. We tried pushing that through. We couldn't even get a pulse on that one. That's why it didn't make it to the proposition. Here's my point. Let's get together. Let's work things out. Thank you.
Currently, we have about 7,000 rent-stabilized units. We need to focus on maintaining those. We really need to maintain them, and not only do we need to maintain those 7,000, we actually need to expand on those rent-stabilized units to make it accessible for everyone. Working on the tenant relocation ordinance, yes, it's a step kind of like in the right direction. Yes, it has its flaws, and we need to actually see what it's going to do, how it's going to help the residents, and move from there. I'm proud to say that today, August 1st, is a good day for the tenant relocation ordinance that was started today and became to be in effect as of today. So congratulations to all those housing advocates who made this happen.
So I, as a renter, and again, as going to be a new house hunter, I definitely agree with renter protection as long as landlords and both sides of the issue are allowed to communicate their positions. I think demonizing landlords as greedy, I think, is disingenuous at best. The thing that I don't agree with, just like everyone else on the council and the mayor said, is I do not think rent control is the answer. It's been shown time and time again to decrease rental properties. It causes some housing to dilapidate, and there's no upkeep, there's no facelifts, there's things of that nature. I just don't think it's the answer. I think building is the answer. I don't think luxury condos all along 3rd and Ocean is the answer. They look very nice, but I can't afford them. I think that the answer is to try and figure out best ways to get the barriers out of the way. The plan in City Hall right now is to have 7,000 affordable homes, and there's 1,400 permits pulled. Okay, so where's the rest of the permits? Why is there such a barrier to building affordable housing in Long Beach? And that's where you start.
Hashim, if elected, you will certainly face difficult decisions. What individuals and groups are you likely to turn to inform your decision making?
I'm going to turn to the people, because the people are the ones that would have elected me to get into the District 1 City Council office. And the people are the ones that are out here experiencing the hardships or whatever else that they're facing. So I would actually turn to the people. See, we have a lot of elected officials that get elected to office, and you never see them walking through the community. Personally, I've never seen Mayor Garcia come down here on 7th and Long Beach Boulevard. Neither have I seen any of the other city councilmen or councilwomen for that matter. They have to get involved with the people. People are the ones that have the issues, so we have to listen to them and discuss with them, because their input is just as important. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
You know, one of the things I've come to a realization is that equity is the way forward for Long Beach. And I think some of the organizations that should participate in these conversations when it comes to housing, homelessness, the quality of life issues that we're facing is organizations like Long Beach Forward, who's sitting up front, but also those that are building housing. You know, there's developers I've had conversations with, all from, you know, every facet of our city in this space, because I think it's important that we're coming up with solutions and multifaceted solutions to solve the problems. This isn't just going to go one way or the other. It's going to take all of us to develop the solutions we need to fix our problems. And so for me, it's also continuing the work that I do now and working with the neighborhood associations that are actively involved in creating better neighborhoods. So, you know, I think it's just really a matter of continuing the work that I do now.
To answer that question, I would listen to all the groups, but I pay particular attention to those that address the pain in our community. There's suffering everywhere, but there's certain unnecessary suffering. And there's lots of groups that cater to those needs of the community, and I like to pay attention to them, because I think when we take care of the unnecessary suffering, the entire community heals as well. And then I also look for people that don't come all the time, right? The usual suspects. These are people that are moved, inspired, and touched by a particular pain that moves them. I'd pay close attention where those folks show up. I'd be looking for those folks in the margin who has an issue that we've never addressed, right? And that would be, I'd be focusing on. And then I also follow the money, right? I'd ask questions like, how are you benefiting from this? Where are the bones buried? Who is affected by this? Who else could be around the table that's not here? And I'll reach out to those folks, unusual suspects, and bring them in.
I've been very active in Long Beach for very, very many years, and I think that I've come across so many organizations and so many associations that I've worked with, and those are the people that I would reach out to. I think that one of the exciting things is that we here in Long Beach have a very engaged community. All across the city, everyone really cares about Long Beach, and so you need to reach out to everyone, including who are our decision makers right now, including council. I have a very good relationship with everyone on council. You have to be able to be professional to move forward. One of the organizations that I'm very fond of course, is Housing Long Beach, because we're always looking for the future of our neighborhood. We're always looking, for the betterment of our residents. I knew building healthy communities back when that was the name. Now it's Long Beach Forward, which is an awesome name for it, I'm so excited about that one too.
I'm seeing some yawns out there, so I'll take it brief or make it brief. I like this question because it's an easy one. You, as a city council member, you listen to everybody. Your job isn't to exclude people or have an agenda or be able to say no, I don't agree with this idea or that thought. Your job is to do the best you can with all sides at the table and the available funds and finances to figure out what is the best way to serve the most amount of people the best you can with the available services, and how we can learn best practices from other cities. Although Long Beach is a leader a lot of times on things, you can get mired in the mud looking at, oh, well, we've done our own stuff. Well, if there's a city that's neighboring that has a similar situation, reach out to them. Be humble and say, hey, how'd you fix this problem? How'd you fix that problem? Again, though, it's as a city council person, your job is to listen to as many people who want their voice heard, and then make the best decision, and then tell everyone why that decision was the best one. It's also information in, but information out as well.
I would actually agree with Ray on that one. You have a responsibility. When you serve the public, you have a responsibility to listen to everyone. That means, including myself, I would have to listen to the oil industry. And then part of the work that I do, I do have to reach out to oil workers, and I do reach out to them. So I 100% agree that's your responsibility. It's in the job title. But to the question, which I think is looking to say, what organizations do you already look to for policy recommendations? And that's organizations like this one, like Our Revolution, like Long Beach Forward, like Californians for Justice. There's a lot of inspiring organizations in this city that I'm happy to listen to, that I'm already part of, a community. We share a community. It's a very sacred relationship. The relationship that you have to your community is something that we should all cherish. I hope that we all can afford to continue to live here and continue to share this community.
Can you share with the audience the first steps you took when you decided to run for office, who you were with or what you were feeling?
The first steps, I landed in front of Kathleen and Jim's home. And of course I spoke to my husband. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. The first steps you took when you decided to run for office, and what you were feeling, sort of how your decision making to do that.
Well, you know, this conversation, I mean, this decision certainly didn't come overnight. And I say this often, you know, I didn't think about running for office a year ago. So it came to me about 6 months ago. And over the last 6 months, I realized that my candidacy was a necessity. That the people, in order for us to be represented by somebody who's doing the work in the community, who's involved in the community, I needed to run. There was no other choice for me but to run because my kids count on it, the next generation, my neighborhood leaders count on it. You know, I've met and known each of our neighborhood associations. Wilmore, the Washington neighborhood, Jesus is here, AOC 7, East Village. I've worked alongside each of these leaders over the last close to a decade. So for me, it was important that I decided to run because it was necessary. We're at a critical point in Long Beach, and I just know that if I don't run, it's going to go, to Elliot's point, to those special interests and not to the people. And for me, it's important about giving inclusion, access, and economic opportunity for all of us. All of us, not a few, for all of us. And that's why I decided to run, because it's important and it's a critical point in our city.
When Lena ran for the Senate and she made through the general election, I knew the seat was going to be vacant. So I talked to my wife, and she's here tonight, and I said, what do you think? And I never got a straight answer from her. Because I ran before. And I put her and the kids and the family through all that stuff. And that's why she was hesitant. And it took a long time. You know, it's not easy the second time around. But she finally came around and she said, whatever you decide, I'll support you. So that's what happened leading up to this race. So I pulled my papers and here I am, running again for city council in the 1st District.
It was a Tuesday night, I remember. I had just gotten home from the city council, and I was nervous as heck, very nervous. And I was sitting there trying to have my dinner. It was like 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And they were still going on the subject I had spoken to at City Hall earlier. And I had my fingers crossed. Please, please, please pass this tenant ordinance. This tenant relocation ordinance, please. The disability community needs it. The seniors need it. And then I realized, what am I doing? This seat is about to be open. I need to be out there fighting, not only for people with disabilities and elderly, but for the people of the 1st District who deserve a champion like myself. So I said a prayer, and I said, Daddy, I'm doing this in your name, for your American dream. May you rest in peace.
When I first thought about running was, I think someone actually asked me, so are you going to run for the seat? And for 2 years, I've been just really focused on making sure my business didn't fail. First 2 years of any business is very, very touch and go. And I honestly went, yeah, I've always wanted to do that. How do I get started? And I started by first making sure my beautiful girlfriend back there was on board. And she said, yeah, this makes perfect sense. It's exactly what you've always wanted to do. And then I actually set up some time to speak with some of the active council members. And the first question I asked them was, is it worth it? They obviously said no. They said yes. Knowing that you're doing the best you possibly can for a city that you love, but you have to be all in. You have to be aware of what it means. You have to be willing to listen. You have to put in long nights. There is no more weekends. Are you ready to make that commitment? And I said yes, because it has been something I've always wanted to do. My earliest memory, I was like 5 or 6, my mom tells me that I saw something happening on the news, and my first instinct wasn't to be scared, it was, I gotta write a letter to the president. So this has been something in me for a very long time.
I think for me, what made me decide to run was a Sustainability Commission meeting that happened about 2 years ago. It's something that wasn't covered by the press. I did everything I could to get it covered. I've been covered by the press since I was 20 years old for much smaller issues. You would figure that the sale of our water to the oil and gas department, especially given the 5 to 10 years that we have, would be a much bigger deal for the media, but it wasn't covered. So in the Sustainability Commission, we had a review of our city's oil and gas operations, including how much carbon's coming out of the ground, how much money are these companies making. For some reason, the director of the oil operations didn't know how much money the private company is making from extracting oil. They were sort of fidgety with the question about where is all this water going once you pump it into the ground, where do you take it out and where do you dump that refuse? So I decided to run for city council because I know that conversation will never hit the council floor unless somebody who actually cares about these issues is going to bring it up. By the way, I just want to tell, I have 15 seconds left, I just want to tell Press Telegram, answer your calls. You have a responsibility to the public to make sure that they are informed about the oil industry, about how much water is going to the oil and gas industry.
When I decided to run, I was with the people. My work week consists of 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, right there on the corner of 7th and Long Beach Boulevard. And what really made me want to run is when a homeless individual by the name of David, who I watched live on the streets for a year, was found dead in the alley behind the McDonald's, and they left his body out there for about 6 or 7 hours before the coroner decided to take him away. And so that's one of the reasons. Another reason is I hear stories from cross-section of the community about the high cost of rent and nothing necessarily being done about it. And so that's one of the reasons, another reason that I wanted to run. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, Missy, there's a couple of questions that are very similar, so I'm going to try to blend them. So it's about money being raised. How much money have you raised? From what groups? Have you raised money from developers, family, unions, downtown businesses? And can you truly be independent and not owe anyone or any donor your votes on city council matters?
So to answer the first one, we just got the account open. So I think we have the minimum deposit in there. Maybe $1,000, maybe $2,000. And then the second question, and that's why I'm not accepting oil money, right? Because I don't think you can go in as an object and expect to come out as a subject. When people donate to your campaign, they're actually buying you. And I'm not sure that's what's right for this community. I've lived in this community for 25 years, and I've seen this as a stepping stone to the next available seat. I've lived for 25 years. This is my community. I'm not going anywhere. And I've climbed other mountains, and there's no mountain like starting the first district. So that's why I'm not taking oil money.
Thank you. I just had a fundraiser and I'm super excited about it, but I don't know exactly how much we've raised, but I'm hoping it's enough at least to make sure that we have our paperwork in and stuff. So, we're working on it. One of the things is that I think that is very important is to be able to raise money from everyone, especially from the community. I think that that to me means the world to me when I see people really donating their hard-earned dollars to me. That energizes me and that tells me that they believe in me and I should move forward with my campaign. And you know, we will get there. I know we will get there together. You know, another thing, I think that in that question we are being asked, are you for sale, Mary? Is your vote for sale? And the answer is absolutely not. I've always been an independent woman, and I tend to stay being an independent woman.
I actually think Mary hit that on the head. The real question is your vote for sale? There's always going to be money in politics. I understand that people want to get it out and they think that money buys influence, and to a certain extent they're correct. But for me at least, there is definitely money coming in. I don't know exactly, but the wonderful part about the 24-hour disclosure is that everyone will find out where the money came from. The nice thing is that I'm upfront, transparent, and running on a platform of upfront transparency. So if you have a question, why did you take this money? Why did this happen? I'll tell you. You know, I want to bring people back to the table, and there's a lot of people, especially with this relocation ordinance, that do not feel like their voice was heard. There are good landlords out there, and there are good organizations that feel like they're getting railroaded, and they want to have a voice at City Hall, and I want to give everyone a voice. So people supporting you for a reason because you are transparent, you are trying to make change, doesn't necessarily mean that you're being bought or sold. So money's going to come into politics, and there's no way around that, but if you're running on a transparency platform, you'll be okay.
So I think all of that sounds nice. I've just heard it all before. I've heard it from the outgoing council members. I've heard it from the mayor. I understand that person works in the oil industry, but they don't influence my decision. I'm my own person. I mean, everyone can say that, but then you take the money. That's just not. Why do you think they gave you $1,000? For most of us, that's what we call rent. Why would someone give you? Well, we all are out here trying to make our rent. Why would they just drop that money off in your account for absolutely no reason? Because they think you're such a great public speaker? Oh, please. Come on, folks. How I plan on raising money, because I have no interest in getting any money from a corporation. A corporation is not a person. I only accept money from human beings. Is I'm going to ask people, small donations, $5, $10, $20. I know a lot of people. I'm going to see where that takes me. Everything I've ever done in my life, whether it's been the Green Long Beach Festival, we did that 4 consecutive years in a row, whether it's when I started my business, everything I've ever done, I always did it knowing that the money will be there. So that's how I plan on fundraising, but it's definitely not accepting corporate money.
Donations, I've turned it down. I'm bankrolling this campaign on my own personal money that I work for. And I think that's the way it should be. Bankroll your own campaign. You don't have to accept money from people. Therefore, you don't have to worry about special interest or, returning the favor. So when you ask who's bankrolling this campaign, which I'm going to win, I am. Thank you.
I love the confidence, Mohammed. I'm the community-based candidate, and there's a lot to be said for that. So when people will pull those forms, you're going to find that the community members here of the 1st District are supporting my race. That as a small business owner, small business owners are supporting my race. And I think there's something to be said to some of the points here is, there's also what they call, and I've learned, independent expenditures. And I think that's something that, when you look at that, people will say, well, I had nothing to do with it. But trust me when I tell you, the endorsements have independent expenditures. And those endorsements are going to be the ones that you should look for, because they're looking for their own special interest and not the interest of the community, not the interest of the working families, not the interest of our children, our those that are with special needs, our vulnerable communities, our seniors. that's not what they're going to be looking for. So for me, again, you know, I am the community-based candidate.
Mary, do you support labor? And how will you work with the various local unions to protect workers' rights?
I absolutely support labor. I think that one of the things that is very important is local hire. I think that it's very important to keep our Long Beach residents in Long Beach, and we need to be able to give them good jobs, competitive jobs, where they don't feel that they have to go outside of Long Beach, where they can, you know, continue being here in Long Beach and being a productive member and actually keeping the local dollars local. So yes, I support union and I support local hire highly.
Again, yes, I support labor. I also support businesses. As a small business owner, I understand how it feels to hire someone to write a check, but also to look at your bottom line. And then as a worker that I've used to be, again, part of the state of California, it's very nice to have that that ability to stand with your fellow workers and fight for things that you think you deserve. Again, though, you have to go back to balance. You can't say you play for one team or the other because it's both teams have a stake in Long Beach. As Mariella put forth earlier, 70% of the people here don't work here, which contributes to parking, which contributes to smog, which contributes to all sorts of stuff. And you have to bring jobs back here. And now what you have to do is if you say that you're pro one side or pro the other, you're going to lose the ability to have compromise, have building come here, have jobs come here. So if I can just put one string through the entirety of my question answers here, it has to be compromised. There's too many interests, there's too many people for those sides to be left out because you feel one is right over the other, because everyone has an interest, everyone has a goal.
As a laborer, as a worker, yes, I stand with the working class, yes, I stand with labor. If we have any chance at rebuilding the middle class in this country, and really we don't have much of a middle class. The middle class is a struggling class. They now identify as the working class because they understand that if they lose one of those paychecks, they're in some significant trouble. So we're all in the working class, the 99%, if you will. I stand with them. And we understand that the only opportunity we have of seeing a rise in wages that keeps up with the rise in everything else, in housing, inflation, food, everything else, is if you have workers fight and bargain for higher wages. That's how wages improved in the first place. That's how we got a middle class in the first place. And what do we see? What we see is the decimation of unions. What we see is the poor is trying to automate, not to bring in jobs, not to make the air better. Don't make them tell you that they care about the air now. It's been polluted 10, 20, 30 years. All of a sudden they care about the air. No, they're doing it because they want to cut labor. Folks, we have to stand with unions. We have to stand with the nurses. We have to stand with the city workers. I'm tired of seeing city employees go to City Hall and have to beg and plead for their benefits, for their pensions. They are workers. They're working. They are the people who fix our roads, fix our stop signs. We need to invest in the working class. We need to invest in labor.
I'm all for unions. I would propose major tax breaks for any Fortune 500 company to move their business to Long Beach. I feel companies like Amazon would be better suited to pay a living wage without the burden of high-ass taxes. A lot of these Fortune 500 companies don't want to stay in California because they're being overburdened with high taxes. That's why they're fleeing to places like Texas, Arizona, and other states. So what we have to do, we have to give these people some tax breaks to give them an incentive to keep their businesses here. You know, we raised the minimum wage, but what good did that do? The price of bread went up, gas, rent, and everything else. So you might as well have left it at what it was. So what we need to do is bring in some companies that's going to pay a sustainable, livable wage. Thank you.
Yes, I support labor. And I think that one of the things we should be doing is creating more labor agreements, project labor agreements, so that we ensure that people are being locally hired. Locally meaning Long Beach, not LA County, but Long Beach. I think there needs to be, even in that space, have priority for disadvantaged workers, for people who've been marginalized. I mean, there has to be a conversation about prioritizing those communities of color, those communities that are vulnerable in this space. I also like to, as a small business owner, see that we are doing equitable procurement and contracting. I want to do business with the city, and I want to do business with the city so I can hire locally as well. I think there's a lot of opportunity there for small businesses, and I'd like to see that also move forward.
I support labor unions. It's important, right? Most of the churches, the ethnic churches, are built by union jobs. So I have a great debt to the union folks. However, we need to be smart about this. We need to take a closer look at why are these unions impacted, right? I think we owe it to ourselves. Unions came into being because jobs were not being paid properly, right? And I think we need a leader to say, yes, but then we need to expand. I guess what I'm saying, and I'm looking at the time, is we need to be smart. We need to run this. This is a digital smart economy, and we cannot use analog skill sets, to solve the problems that we're having. I was at the ILWU, and I saw the pain there. I was asked by the VA as my membership in the clergy cause to come and pray for folks that are in pain. So I'm conflicted, and there has to be a better solution. That's why we need to come together as a community, so we can put this thing together, because there's so much suffering and so much unnecessary suffering.
It looks like we're getting close to 9, and I don't want to run over, so you have time to meet me back with everybody. If your question didn't get asked, please feel free to go around and ask your question and get an answer out of these people.
All right, everybody. Before we start shuffling around, just 1 second. So what you'll be able to chat with the candidates. You'll be able to work for the candidates, volunteer for the candidates, and afterwards we have to keep them accountable once they're elected. That's what our Revolution Long Beach is for. Make sure that you guys join us next time on April 27th. Thank you so much for being here tonight.